Welcome everybody to this edition of Beers with Bill. It's my great pleasure to welcome Chris and Bebo back to the show. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Cheers.
Cheers.
Let's step into a Slim Jim. Let's get right into it.
Well, tell us a little bit about it.
Bebo.
This is Kills, our Czech style Pilsner. It's one of the beers. We don't have many beers that we have around all the time, but Kills is one that we like to have around all the time. It's not easy to do given our brew schedule, but yeah, it's just like a really crushable Pilsner. We like to keep it nice and soft and drinkable. Still got a nice, like, rich, malty, kind of spicy aromatics from the grains and the Saz hops we use. So super clean, super drinkable, super fun.
Cheers. Lots of flavor. That's what I like. This to me is a good example of a craft lager. Something that you can just really sink your teeth into and you can tell it's made with love. I honestly drink so much of this beer and I never saw it coming.
So this has been 4-month happening because I tried to get you on the first show of the third season, and it was like, give us a call in July or August when things slow down a little bit. You guys have been busy.
I think that was near our anniversary, was it?
Yeah, it was like the week of the anniversary. It's like, I love you, Bill. We're honored, but that was just not happening.
Sleep wasn't happening.
So I was just being selfish, guys. I'm going to be honest. I was just being selfish. I thought it'd be really cool for the three of us to celebrate the anniversaries right together.
It would be for sure. The sentiment was there. It's that's the weird thing so far. We got to get better at this because the anniversaries turn into beatings.
I can well imagine. I took a look at what you were doing that week, and I'm like, yeah, I get why you wouldn't want to be talking to me at all that week.
Just too much to do, so many numbers, so many mistakes that can be made, so many people that can be let down or angry.
Okay, season 4, let's do a collab together.
Let's do it. Season 4.
Yeah. Mike's curious, have you ever thought about dry hopping the pills?
Indeed.
Yeah, we did a dry hop version. When was that? It's like late winter, I guess.
I think so.
February.
I want to say January, but
yeah,
I remember.
Yeah, it was good. It was pretty wild that so when you dry hop a lager, you do it whenever you dry hop. It's always like the last thing you do before you package beer, because you want to retain all those like aromatics. But when you dry hop a lager, it's obviously really cold. So like anything scientific, there's more reaction at warmer temperatures. So when you dry hop like an IPA or a double IPA, you normally do it pretty close to room temperature. But dry hopping a lager, you do it basically at freezing temperature. So you have to use a lot more hops than you would. So we dry hop it basically at the rate of like a double IPA. But it didn't come across nearly like that kind of intensity of hops. But it was pretty wild, the difference in the beer just from the addition of more dry hops. It brought like this really interesting kind of lemon characteristic, and it changed the mouthfeel for sure. I think there was something with the oils and the hops somehow brought something out of it. But yeah, it was interesting. We haven't gone into any like New World hops like Citra or anything like that. We went pretty traditional with like a noble European hop. But yeah, it's something that we would like to try more. But having lagers just takes a long time. Like we could turn out so many more beers in the time that a tank is tied up for a lager. So if we're gonna do 5 different lagers, like it just would grind our company to a halt. So we have to be very specific about when we do them and how long they're going to be in the tank, and even as far as like which tank it's physically going in our brewery. That's like, okay, the far one that's in the dark, dusty corner, nobody has to go around too often. So they're definitely a labor of love.
Well, that would be an interesting thing to do, but I get what you mean by like that would be the end of the brewery because all the tanks are tied up.
Yeah, it's like come back in 8 weeks and we'll have 2 new loggers for you.
Yeah, that was one of the hardest things at the start was realizing, we wanted to have this in our lineup. We already had conceived this beer, but it just couldn't do it, right? Just couldn't do it if we wanted to stay afloat. It's like, well, let's get some IPAs pumping out, and then we'll stuff this in later. But we hope now that we can always have it available. That's our goal. This one, Kills Pills, and our Rise Pale Ale and Bone Tree IPA, 3 that we're trying this year to always have available, so people can count on it. People who love those beers and actually want to drink the same beer twice can do so. And thanks to probably all of you who are drinking beers more than once tonight. We're really slowing down your Untapped progress. Apologize, but it's nice to have a beer together.
So that answered my question that was in my head was you start doing that, that's going to change the actual dynamics of what you can put out every week.
Yeah, we started doing so Beer Town. We have Bone Tree available at Beer Town, and it took a while to kind of get on their radar and get ourselves to the place where we could commit to just producing a whole bunch of one beer. And then we have Rise Pale Ale, which has been in beer markets. So we started and kind of pressed go on both of those roughly at the same time. And it was pretty crazy the volume that they were taking. So we normally brew like 4 or 5 times in a week. And it's normally 4 or 5 different beers. And then one week we just brewed Bone Tree and Rise, and that was it all week. So then we're like looking out 2 or 3 weeks down the road when what new beers are coming out. That's our whole business model, is new beers every Thursday. Like, well, there's none. That's just Bone Tree and Rise. It's like, wow, that's how the other half lives. That's how other breweries do it.
And they're really good, and we're super excited to drink them. But we
Yeah.
just know, you brew the same beer again, and it's not going to sell quite as quickly as it did the first time. So but it's a necessary evolution of a brewery. Do you want to have your entire base of customers be hypersensitive, fickle people that could completely drop you with one wrong move that you might make? Or do you want to start to have some more stable business with people that you can count on, who come to know a few of your beers and come to trust that they can find them when they come visit you? And kind of for us, that's what this year, that's a big part of what we're trying to do differently than we did the first 2 years, is to keep doing as many new beers as we did, but also have these beers in stock.
That must take quite the juggling act.
It's exactly what it is. Yeah.
So that would lead me to my question. What's the 1 or 2 things that the 2 of you really tackle every day that's a struggle for you?
Getting out of bed.
I hear you.
More so for me than you, probably. You have no choice. Your boys are jumping on you.
Yeah, I got 2 young kids, and my youngest is sick right now, so he's literally up all night coughing and hacking, and I've like barely slept since Thursday. So
I'm sorry to hear that. I hope he gets better soon.
he'll get over it. I just finally got some antibiotics and a puffer today, so hopefully the worst is over.
So what do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first? What would you say you
Go for it.
well, I would say for me it's sales, mostly on the wholesale side. It's just, it's better. A lot of the things that Bebo and I do, we so far feel, and I'll speak for you, but tell me you feel differently. It seems like it's easier if one person just owns it, and instead of trying to like both tag team something, you just kind of like, okay, you do this aspect. And so I just over time started handling a lot of the sales for our licensees, bottle shops, restaurants, bars, and exports as well. Just kind of, I'm just every day, I'm just trying to put more sales into the system and trying to keep the revenue coming in just a little bit quicker than the expenses are coming out of the account. That's so it's every day I'm just trying to keep the bank account full, keep that pipeline coming in, and the sales thing. I mean, what I'm doing now is barely scratching the surface of what I could do, but when you can't afford to hire more labor, you got to do it yourself. So we both do a lot of things that, and I do like maintaining that relationship with our licensees. I like being able to tell them, you need anything, I'm the one you talk to, and they know they have one throat to choke if anything goes wrong. And that way I have really good pulse on how things are working in those places and how much each place can sell, and making sure that everyone knows that we only want them to buy what they can comfortably sell. We don't want shelf turds. We want fresh beer, keep it moving. It works for both of us. And just making sure that staff on the end of those businesses know what they're selling, can speak to it, make sure they have all the information they need to promote it. Really just, that's kind of something I just attack. And it's gotten to the point now where everything else I do is sort of after I get the most urgent sales done. What would you say, Bebo?
I don't know. It's like it's everything. I think for me, I don't even know that this answers your question. It's funny because like I think the first 100 or 120-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood, beers we made, I brewed every single one of them. Like I did not brew a beer. And then now I like never brew. I oversee it and I give them the recipes and dote on them like an angry old nanny and try to correct whatever issues pop up. But it's funny that like Chris and I work day jobs doing kind of boring corporate stuff. And it's like, we left it for the romance of opening a brewery. And I always thought like, oh, just brewing beer is what I want to do. And it's like, I never, not never, but I very rarely am like actually physically brewing the beer now. I'm just like ordering ingredients and what like the beers we're releasing this week are like over and done in my mind. Like they're in the can, it's done. Now I'm worried about next week and the week after and 3 weeks after. I'm worried about like, we're doing a big release for Halloween, not too different from our anniversary. So I'm spending hours trying to figure out how those are going to play together and work the schedule and make sure we got ingredients and labels and all that kind of stuff. So it's the realities of running a small business where it's like, we deal with the really, really big stuff and the really, really small stuff that nobody else is dealing with. Like squeegeeing the floors, but also making sure we don't run out of money.
And on a daily basis, we're constantly talking about what are the next beer styles we're going to brew. What are the, what labels are we going to use? What names are we going to use? What imagery? Like what are the flavors of our next epic slushies going to be? Like what can we do for Halloween? What can we do that'll be really exciting? It's like a constant running dialogue, which is pretty cool. It's one of the things I love about it is we set up shop beside each other and it's just a flowing dialogue while we hammer the keys and just try to not interrupt each other too much, but keep it fluid. It's that part that's one of the things I was looking forward to with this, and I'm thankful that we do still have that. And that's how the two of us are able to both engage our staff and bring them in to tasting the beers, making sure we listen to everyone's opinion in the brewery before we make a decision, and just try to get us all on the same page. And often we're unanimous with how the beers are tasting and whether we think they're ready, if they need anything, they need any extra love. We all kind of know and we have a standard that we started from the beginning, and so that's great that we're able to do that. But then it also is great that we're able to bring it all together and make a decision within a couple hours or less on anything we've had to do. It's just Bebo and I in about 30 seconds will be like, what about this? What about this? Okay, this, you agree? Yep. Okay, maybe, yeah, we're aligned. Done.
Well, that's great. What's the next beer we're going to try?
Thinking Rise Pale Ale. What are you guys feeling? How's the pace? You there?
Slow.
You know, I'm going to bug you like every 15 minutes because we got just an hour to do all 4 beers.
Yeah, I forgot. I'm on still
we
on
just
summer
finished-
hours.
We just finished work. Alrighty. Rise Pale Ale. A pale ale that we dabbled with lots of hop combos, trying to find one that would please beer nerds and craft curious, new to craft. And we picked a delicious hop blend. Citra, Mosaic, and Cashmere. And yeah, we played around with a lot of different combos before we got to this one. What else can we say about this, Bebo? Cheers.
Cheers. I don't know. What else you want to know?
Well, it was kind of right before we were setting up for the beer markets where we've had this beer pouring all summer long, and
Yeah.
we did a hop blend that had Nelson Sauvin that a lot of us loved.
Oh
It
yeah.
didn't feel mainstream enough for the beer markets. We thought we really need this to just hit all the pleasure buttons, no matter who walks through that door. And then this one just, it came out and just immediately we're like, yep, that's it. It just feels right. It's a beer we want to drink all the time. Nice big citrus, a lemon meringue sweetness, and it's just so easy to get into.
Yeah, we like that it's like 5.2%, so it's pretty light, but it doesn't drink light. It drinks more like an IPA. It's got, you know, for a pale ale, it's pretty full bodied and pretty saturated with hops. And this label is one of our favorites. Our artist Casey goes by Yard Wolves. We kind of have this like master list of beer names that we just stuff that you read in a book or see on a movie or whatever, just random thing pops in your head you think might be a cool name. We just plop it in there, and then he will like draw something or create something and then kind of try to pick a name that goes with it and then make a real rough version of a label, and he puts it in this shared drive we have. I don't know what we're up to, but we're pretty high up there. He just puts a number on each one, so like 1, 2, 3, 4, and so as we use one up, then he'll take it off. So then it'll, you know, it's kind of a skeleton. It'll be like 5 and then 32 and kind of random. And Rise was one of the first one. I forget what number it was, but it was like in the single digits, and we'd gone through 60 or 70 different ones. And then one time he was at the brewery and he's like, "What's you guys don't like that one?" And we're like, "No, it's too good. Like we love it so much. Like no beer feels worthy using this label." And we went through a bunch of different. So we knew we wanted to make pale ale that was like one we loved, wanted to drink, wanted to have around. And even the name, we went through so many versions of a name. Like most of the time, they come together really obviously and easily. But yeah, so this one was like, even the label was like as thought out as anything we've done for, you know, yeah. for like a non anniversary beer, or non-collab beer, just like one that we're working on, like even the colors, everything about it. So yeah, this is very proud of this one.
And we wanted the name to be, something that was memorable, something that people can pronounce. This is like, it isn't, it doesn't.
Sneak peek at the next beer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's something that, isn't silly for people to say.
So how did you guys come up with this idea of like having a book of labels pre-made that you could go through to find the name for a beer?
That was not by design. It's just we have all these ideas. Bebo reads a lot and is definitely taken in a lot more information from external sources, whereas I kind of go inward into my own brain and off on tangents there. But we have a lot of ideas together that just wanted to capture, and we knew this is something cool every time we read something or see something or think of it, and we just wanted to capture it and not lose it. We can decide later what it's for. I've also written a lot of songs, music, so some of them are song titles that of songs I've already written, which is cool because then I know who to ask permission from to use it. So
Okay. Terry and Emma, they're curious. That dialogue you discussed where the two of you are sort of walking through side by side and see, do you ever record those sessions or you just do them?
they're pretty disjointed because Jim's walking in every 5 minutes with some new joke, and there's people walking in and out of the room at all times. So but we like that. That's kind of why we set up shop there. We've got 2 other units now with private space, but we, rather than go over there for peace and quiet, we're here because we find it's just the most productive way to just discuss stuff openly, take it as it comes. Whoever is in that day gets to be part of any taste testing or brain sessions we're having. So yeah, I mean, we could record them, but who has time to go back and watch them and listen to them?
Well, hey, Chris, more to it than that. Where do you write it all down? Like, you get into a discussion, you're doing something, you're talking about a name or a beer, you're having one of these back and forths with Bebo, and then something springs a leak and you both run off in 2 directions. How do you remember it? Where do you record it?
Shared documents like Google Docs.
Like, and just throw it all in a Google Docs and then go back and look at it later.
That's one of the things. So I'm sure this, that Bebo and I planned this for 5 years before we opened. And a lot of that planning stage was getting organized and
Right.
actually creating folders and like deciding on nomenclature and like file systems and organization, org charts, just kind of how did we see the buckets. And everybody's got everything they've experienced in their past lives working for other companies, and that's the fun part about bringing it all together, everything you've learned, to kind of go forward with your own company.
But you guys are doing something, and it seems to come naturally to you both, that you've come up with a mechanism to collaborate and collect and share ideas that many, many organizations struggle with and don't know how to manage that process.
That's a good point.
You guys are doing it naturally. You wake up in the middle of the night, you come up with a name or you come up with a recipe or an ingredient, and you obviously record that and say, I need to keep that because I'm going to need to refer to that later, maybe in the future. And it might be a year, it might be 2 years, it might be, as you said, you liked Rise when you saw it, but you didn't match it with a beer for years.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't recommend this approach for everyone, but I know the way it's been for Bebo and I for the past few years. It's a constant conversation in WhatsApp that we're just, and like, it's true. You think about things and you get inspiration at different times of the day. And Bebo and I have some differences to our home lives that kind of, our days aren't perfectly lined up with each other in the moments when we have those inspirations are not lined up, but we kind of have this trust with each other where our chat that we have just with the two of us is a place to just slap shit down, just get it down there. And you can star those so you can find them later and search on them, just get it in there. And it's something that I think we're only in this third year starting to get a little better at balancing the timing of it and the expectation to respond quickly and try to just really let each other naturally, kind of get to it when we get to it, and we both are getting to everything as fast as we can. But it's something that would burn most people out, and so we're still trying to find better systems that would allow us to capture all the stuff. And so I know for myself, I certainly think before I message a lot of stuff now, unless I'm just enjoying a beer or something. And then it's like, it kind of becomes a combined friend chat. And we used to have two different chats, a business one and a friend one. But then sometimes the chats bleed into each other and you're searching in the wrong chat, and it just kind of melted into one. But it's been really challenging to kind of navigate that for myself, is like, when is it friend time, when is it work time? And I'm always thinking about work. So even when we're just hanging out, ideas will come to you. It's yeah, that's an interesting point you make, because it is something that we do really well, but it certainly comes at a cost, and we're still trying to get better at that. I think I think I want to be a better partner for Bebo, to like not be draining him, but rather be kind of like building him up at the same time. And I think that's what a good partner wants to do for the other. So we, it's good to kind of celebrate the successes and the good things we see too, instead of constantly just like, well, this needs to get done, this needs to get done. So yeah, work in progress.
How are you finding cost happening right now? Like all the things, prices changing on almost a daily basis. How's that being handled?
Oh, it's awesome. Fucking love it. It's not an issue at all. No, it sucks. It sucks really bad. And it's like, Chris and I always talk about, we don't even know like the depth of how bad it really sucks. Like, I'll do the kind of cost base on our stuff. And it's a lot worse than it used to be, but it feels like every brewery owner I talk to is like struggling in a very desperate situation. And it feels like so much scarier than it ever was. And it's not quite accelerating as bad as it was in like June, July, in terms of the increases. They seem to have plateaued, but there's no sign of things going back. And also, there's only so much you could increase the price of beer. So if our ingredient costs go up 30%, we can't raise our prices 30%. Like, we get destroyed in the market. So it's this weird situation where like the big brewers are able to absorb that, and they're just letting the small folks just die out there. It's a really tough thing.
Because then again, the bigger you are, the better unit cost you get, right? So it's really painful, and 30% is what our costs went up across the board. And we did like a 5% price increase, and then we're like, I don't think we can go any further. Like, we don't want to be the most expensive out there. We want to have a couple breweries more expensive than us. So I don't think we can go any further, and we're in this predicament. And it has been this way on draft beer, I feel, for the last couple of years. But now it's this way on packaged beer too. It's just not, the market price isn't high enough to support a brewery doing well. So we've got, unfortunately, a forced starving artist scenario, and hopefully over time it works itself out, because it's just, why is art got to be appreciated when it's gone all the time? Why can't we help support artists in a way that allows them to just not even thrive, just be good, not be stressed out and losing
Exist.
sleep over it.
Yep. I hear you in that. And
I
my,
think that just a quick tangent is like Chris and I, our mentality is always like the beer first. Product quality is like the number one thing. We won't compromise, we won't bend, we won't cut any corner or spare any expense. So we had a slushy we were doing not long ago, and you know, we make all the calculations and I figure out, okay, if we use this much fruit and this much whatever and throw it all in there, and it just wasn't very good. Like it needed a lot more. So instead of just putting it out as is or blending, there's many other ways we could have gone other than like just throw a whole shitload more money at it. So I drove her all around the province and scraped up a bunch of other ingredients, and we put like more than $2,000 additional ingredients into the beer, and it was good. It was really good, and we were really excited about it. But that's not a sustainable business practice. That's not like if you're getting your MBA and that's one of the case studies, that's like don't do that. But we're never not going to do that, because for us, like, you know, the beers are what we like, we live and die for. So we're not going to put out a subpar product or cut corners or whatever. Or even like we use a lot of these like advanced hop products like Cryo or Spectrum or Incognito or whatever, and these things are designed to be cost saving measures. Like you could get the experience of Citra, but with like just a little bit of this syrup instead of like bags and bags of hops. So we don't use them as cost saving. We use bags and bags of hops and that syrup and some of this other stuff. So it's just like the fully saturated experience. Like, oh, that's so good. But then you do the math and you're like, oh, we shouldn't have done that. So living in a way where it's like we want to produce the absolute best beers we can, no matter what, in a massively increasing cost environment is it's tough. It's a tough dance.
imagine, because there's also all the uncertainties that go in. What's the future hold?
Yeah, I mean, really, we can't let this ship sink. So that's
No.
it. There's no other option. Keep moving forward.
That's true. That's true. So talk to me about the third beer we're going to try tonight.
So this beer is called Defenestrated Egos. And if you tell me you knew the word defenestrated before we put out this beer, I'm gonna call you a liar. So this is a collaboration with Sawdust City. Great folks, awesome beers. Their beers, like you know, we swapped a bunch of beers, and ones I had, like, they are so well made and so well executed. And they're like QA and QC is so on point that it's really inspirational that they're that big and produce that much beer, and like the quality is that exact. It's really cool. So the idea for this beer was we're gonna make like an old school black and tan, but we wanted to make two different beers that, you know, a lot of times when you make a collab where it's like we'll each kind of do the same beer, but it's our version or slightly different. But this is like we made totally different beers. So they made a Baltic Porter, which is traditionally a lager that was in the tank for like 10 weeks or something. And we made like a hazy double IPA, and then you pour some of our beer and then their beer on top, and it makes a black and tan. And then you take the two beers and place them next to each other. So it looks like Chris is going to give us the full experience here. So you put the two beers next to each other, and the picture becomes a different picture, and the name becomes a different name. So it's like those old Mad Max magazines where you like fold it over and like, you know, totally changes. So it was a fun one to come up with, and it was pretty stressful. So we kind of came up with the idea of being orchestrated chaos. So it's like this big chaotic thing. You got to go to two breweries and get two different beers, totally different styles, and they'll come together well. So they came up with Orchard of Change, and they're like, you just got to come up with something that ends in whatever.
And
Astrated. Yeah, astrated. So I found this website where you could put in any word, and if you put in like a little asterisk before, it'll like kind of do like a wildcard search. And there's two words in the English language that ends in astrated: orchestrated and defenestrated. So we're like, okay, we gotta go with defenestrated. So yeah, it was a fun beer to make. It's a double IPA with so then when you put the two together, it's kind of like a black IPA. So we went to hops that were a little more black IPA hops. So Mosaic, Simcoe, and some Cryo Columbus. So we wanted both of them to be good on their own, but together to be like an even better experience. And yeah, you can see Chris has got it there.
I personally like the black and tan best. It's so good. It's also fun.
Yeah, and then there's even some like, brewing shenanigans we had to do. So if like when you do the black and tan, it's like the final gravity, like the sugar density, the heavier one is on the bottom. So if we want to have a black and tan, the tan has to be a higher gravity. So we had to change on the fly what we would normally do to make the black and tan work. Oh, there it is.
Delish. So I like how the sweetness from the double IPA balances the roastiness from the porter. And as a black and tan, it's such a balanced beer. And it's fun to work on this with a brewery that we both have respected since the beginning. And I echo Bebo's comments. They're making such quality beer consistently. It's amazing to see how what they've grown into and how they've maintained that and just never budge on quality.
Yeah, there's some breweries, like I won't say any names, but like when brewers get together, it's like, oh, those guys, yeah, they're a little inconsistent or technical flaws or whatever. But Sawdust is one of those, like everyone holds them in the highest regard. It's like they nail it. So even like a 8% Baltic Porter that's like a imperial lager, many places would make that and it would not be good. They just like flawlessly just made it. It's pretty wild.
9% even. This black and tan business is it's risky business.
So whose idea was the black and tan?
I don't even know. I think it was Sam's.
Sam was the brainchild behind this concept. I think he knew what he wanted, and we just kind of finished talking out the rest of it to figure out how it went. But it's definitely taking collaboration to a new level, and it was a lot of work for us.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't just slap this together.
Even the labels.
Labels, it was like, oh my goodness.
Like the first time we were like really stressed like about labels. Like we're always like, it's good, we got time. And this one was like, this is gonna I remember like they needed to be at the printer like the week before and they weren't. And then I was like, our artist sent us a message and I'm like, I don't even know if they know what the fuck, like I felt so far away from what we had talked about. It was like pretty panicked. I'm like, we gotta have a big sit down with everybody and all that. And we had this like nice big call and I was like, oh, you guys do know exactly. They were like 99% of the way there. It's like, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Terry's also curious. Defenestrated means like thrown out a window. Why is the window on the Orchard of Change?
Yeah, the label is supposed to go together. So I think
Yeah.
what it's supposed to be is the head is flying out the window and there's glass everywhere on both of them. So it was really us kind of, throwing our egos out the window as far as, what we think is the next most important thing that people need to drink. And why don't we just look back and pay some homage to a tried, tested, and true drink that has brought people a lot of joy, and let's focus more on that and bringing something back together. And you guys know we do a lot of beers that are in the styles that are trendy now, and that's just because what we like to drink. But we like to drink a lot of things beyond what we make at the brewery, and if it's a good drink, it's a good drink. So this was an opportunity for us to kind of do something that felt fun, and it was inspired for us by our trip to the UK and just having some traditional styles and falling back in love with beer, and just realizing these drinks, whether it's beer or any kind of drink that's been around for centuries, these exist because they've made a lot of people happy over the years. And so it kind of was it's a nice opportunity for us to kind of do something we wouldn't normally do.
I thought that was a good point. So I think that was by design, that the window, the fenestrate is to throw something out a window, and the window was on their label, and theirs was Orchard of Change. And if you look like the background of this, there's like a bunch of trees back there. So I think it was like a subtle, like, go from this one to this one, and I don't know.
A landscape.
Yeah.
It's a landscape shot.
Yeah, we're all playing checkers, and they were playing chess.
So there are many layers to this, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Can only be fully understood after you complete a full black and tan with
Yeah.
both hands.
Well, Jen's offered to get everybody the one from Sada City because she's going up there this weekend.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we sent a bunch of cases up there as well, and they're blowing through them. So it's fun. Their license allows them to sell both of them. Ours does not, but
Yeah.
they're carrying both of them. So pretty fun to get the whole experience.
Yep. She's also curious, what hops are in yours?
It says Mosaic, Simcoe, and Cryo Columbus.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like Columbus is a pretty traditional hop, but the cryo processing is a very new school. So I thought it was kind of like a cool, like, old world, new world, because it's like an old way, black and tan's a pretty old school thing, but we're taking like a modern take on it. So it was a pretty abstract hop choice, but I thought it kind of fit.
She says it's great. I'm looking forward to trying it.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to stray off this part of it, and I'm curious how you see the craft beer industry today with all the changes that have happened because of COVID.
That's a good question. I think there's a lot of fallout that's yet to happen. Like I was saying, with so many really small breweries really hurting. I think that as many have gone under, I'm surprised more haven't. And I don't say that lightly or anything. Like it's pretty heartbreaking. I think that like it's pretty telling that the best thing that like the government did was just like let people do what they were going to do. Like let these independent bottle shops open up. And I think that's something that's been really good. But still, when you go to other provinces or other parts of North America, you realize how far behind Ontario is with its laws. Like we're sending beer. We sent beer to BC, and to get beer in BC, it's like so complicated. It's so ridiculous. It's easier for us to send beer to Australia than it is to BC, or it's as much work, really. And it's pretty ridiculous. So I think that I get concerned that people are like clapping themselves on the back. That's like, look how far we've come. But when you go to places like Quebec and you see the volume these breweries are doing, and you could just self-distribute to any grocery store, any corner store, any gas station you want, without, them. You realize how much room we have to grow. So I hope that that more things continue to change in time to make it easier for small businesses to do what they want to do. But I think that's probably not going to happen.
I think you can't be forgiven for having some fat in your business at this point. It's like you need to seek out every part of your business, every cost, everything you spend money on, analyze it to death and hunt down better prices. It's a huge shakeup across, suppliers for all of these businesses. You can't just keep doing what you're doing. You need to turn over every rock, look under it, try to find the pennies to keep your business healthy. And pandemic was really, it's pushed a lot of businesses in a lot of different ways. And so coming out of it is not just back to normal. It's like, keep going on not just evolving your business, but also making sure that you are as lean as you could possibly be. This is a real test that is still happening. And I always talk about this with Bebo, that think of how many small businesses, not just breweries, that have been hanging on to get through this and are not going to be able to make it and probably should have went out of business last year, but they have everything on the line and are doing something that they're completely passionate about and believe in. And that hasn't changed. So they're not going to give up. And sometimes you just get in too big of a hole. And that's my biggest fear, is the bloodbath of small business. It's like anything, the trends show that, oh, we're pulling out of it, we're good. But the aftermath, it's got a long tail. So this, I think, it's not over for us, and it's not over for any other small business. Every 6 months, it's a completely different world. And I don't see that stopping for the next couple of years.
Probably very true. Jerry's curious, this, apart from lowering the taxes, what could the province be doing to help the craft beer industry?
I mean, yeah, taxes are, they're definitely a big one. It's there. Bebo probably has a lot of ideas on this. When he comes back, we'll get him to chime in on some of what he thinks. But it's these laws are so, they've been around for so long that changing them is not. They're so interwoven to the fabric of how all of these different alcohol providers operate, that it's like it would be really hard to, I think, start to make a difference. Like you introduce the ability to put beers in grocery stores. It sounds great at first, but it's got to be managed. And now we're in the state where, tell me if you guys feel any differently, but grocery stores where you can buy beer, people tried that and they're not doing it anymore because they've been burned buying beer that's not fresh, and stuff just goes there to rot. And so that's not really helping anyone, is it? So any little change you make has got to be, it's got to be followed up with a support system. And it's no different with alcohol than it is with, improving safety in neighborhoods. It's like any change in law you make, you've got to back it up with support. Do you think Bebo, do you think there's any like quick wins that our province could do to support us and help breweries through this? I feel like everything is like kind of a multi-step approach that is got to happen in conjunction with the breweries. I wish there was something that governments could just do to make it easier for us. What do you think?
Yeah, I think probably the number one question we get is, are you guys in the LCBO? Is your beer in the LCBO? And we're not. And talking to other brewers that are, it's an absolute nightmare to get in there. And then you are like living and dying on one brand. So you like get one in there, and if it does well, you're like, business is going to succeed. And if it doesn't, or you have like 2 slow months, like you're done. And it's pretty crazy to me that this is like owned by the government. Like the government owns the distribution. And like, why, like if our beer says brewed in Ontario, it says every beer has to say where it was brewed. it's brewed here. Why can't we walk into every LCBO and be like, here's 5 cases of our beer. This is what you're gonna charge us. Like, why is there this whole ridiculous like method to get it in there and then it's just one? And it's like so opposite about how the way people buy craft beer. Like we come up with new beers all the time and people love that. So what, like the fact that they own a way that we could sell the beers and we don't sell our beers there, it blows my mind. And I think that
There are entry
not-
costs to that game. You have
like
to
not,
pay
not
money just to get in.
just to get in, yeah. And like the deadline was like 2 months ago to apply for like the spring seasonal next year. It's so ridiculous. And I think like not growing up around here and not living around here too much until I was older, like I realized how crazy this whole scenario is, that there's this one place to buy alcohol. But it's like if you've always been around it, like it doesn't seem as weird. So even during COVID, it's like if every brewery was able to just pick like the ones in the town that they operate and could just bring their beer there and just sell it without going through these like taste panels and, oh, we really like it, but we don't want this style right now. It's so insane that this like,
And this is
random
such a great beer.
bureaucrats.
We know it is. We love it, but it's been 2 years. So that's it. We can never sell this beer here again. Everybody wants it still, but no.
So I think that's something that's like, just stop saying no. Just like, it's so crazy that like, it's honestly easier to buy our beer in northern UK right now than most places in Ontario. Like that blows my mind.
Yeah. And you want to get it to everyone and say, okay, let's open it up and let's, but the cost of getting additional licenses to be allowed to distribute in each province, it's thousands upon thousands of dollars that you don't just pay once. You have to renew every like and shipping beer is the worst business that there is. So it kind of peels you back to the original model, which is come to our brewery to buy the beer. It goes from our fridge into your trunk and then into your fridge. It doesn't go on a truck somewhere bumping around, hot and cold, hot and cold. And those are really good reasons to buy straight from the brewery, but they also are the only sustainable way for that brewery and for the way you support them. Because every other way of distribution is so costly that it gobbles up what little margin is left.
Before we close, don't need to crack open the fourth one, but talk to us about it.
Well, I want to.
Well, you
Yeah,
want
we
to?
haven't come
Okay,
this
that's
far to
fine.
not do it. I even went and washed another glass.
Well, then let's get it
We
over
gotta
with.
do it.
Okay.
So this is cinnamon roll bestowed. So we make a line of beer. They're like imperial pastry stouts, called bestowed, and each one we kind of do a take on a dessert or some culinary item that sounds delicious to us. So we've done like coconut macaroons and peanut butter cups and chocolate cake and birthday cake and all this stuff. So this is the most recent one we did, which is cinnamon rolls. So this one, our list of future bestows is very long. And every now and again, it's just like, okay, it's time to knock this one out. But this was actually a guy that was working with us for a while randomly was like, you guys should do a cinnamon roll one. I'm like, that's really good. That's a good idea. We get a lot of unsolicited beer ideas that are just so bad and so disgusting. So when we get one that sounds good, it's always catches my ear. So this one,
You should have told everyone to take it out of the fridge beforehand.
You want to drink this one slightly warmer, right?
yeah.
More aroma, more flavor, bigger body.
Yep.
I like mine room temp. But you don't have to go quite that far. However you like to drink it, it's how you like to drink it.
So there's a bakery in Milton called The Rose, and they make, it's a really, really good bakery. And I called them a couple days before and said, "Can you make us a bunch of cinnamon rolls? We're going to put them in a beer," and they were really excited about it. So actually, my wife went to pick them up, and she called me, and she's like, "Did you want onion rolls?" So for some reason, they when they wrote the ticket out, the baker made like just copious amounts of onion rolls. I'm like, we make weird beers, but onion roll stout does not sound like that. Ain't it? So they like cleared the shelves of all the cinnamon rolls they had. So we threw those in, and then a bunch of different kinds of cinnamon to try and layer the flavors of cinnamon, because there are different types of cinnamons. So there's like Ceylon cinnamon, which is like a real cinnamon, they call it. That's real subtle, and it just brings like a nice warmth, and it's pretty soft and smooth. And then there's like the more traditional cinnamon, you'd get like a cinnamon stick that's a little harsher and brings a little more bite. So layered in different cinnamons and different vanilla too. So yeah, there's a lot going on in this beer in terms of adjuncts, but what I like most about it is like I feel like you could actually taste the pastry on the finish. So we threw in all the cinnamon rolls they had, and I feel like you could actually kind of get it in.
Yeah, this one is, we get the question a lot, how sweet is it? But I really feel like it's not cloying, like it's not overly sweet. It's just stops short of that. It's decadent, it's a dessert, but I can drink an entire can and will tonight.
Yeah, the cinnamon helps to cut the sweetness. But yeah, it's weirdly drinkable for like a very big beer that's got a lot of weird stuff in there. No onion rolls, but it's got a lot of stuff in there. Yeah, it's pretty drinkable.
Chris, Bebo, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and finally getting back on the show with me. I truly appreciate talking with the two of you. I do miss having come to pick up beer though, because that's always been the highlight, me coming up and seeing you personally and grabbing the beer for everybody.
We'll do it again, Bill. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.